19 to this point. Now he's 16 of 20.
I was so close to predicting this one right. I predicted 27 to 17 in favour of the Pats. It ended up 27 to 14. And it went exactly how expected, to be honest. I watched the rerun of the game this morning. Obviously, it's early doors here in the UK, so I had to get up at around 3:30 to watch the game. And it just went how I think we all expected it to go, right? We had Drake May again having another really good game. I think he scored nearly 300 throwing yards. What was it? It was 281, I believe. 25 for 34 catches. A touchdown pass, and again, only sacked once through no interceptions, had a really good game. One or two maybe shaky passes, but apart from that, he was efficient. He threw short very well, he threw long very well. I think he just had an all-around really good game. He was helped massively by Trayvon Henderson. Again, another amazing match by him. Total of 93 yards in the game. I think 63 were receiving yards, and he scored 3 touchdowns. That's him scoring multiple touchdowns now in 2 consecutive matches. He's doing really well, and the pair of them are combining really well. And add Stephon Diggs, who I think scored another 100+ receiving yard game, and you've got a team that's really, really formidable here. So they're now 9-2. They're looking really good. And I think they've got quite an easy run in, and I think in December they play the Bills and the Ravens, which are going to be the 2 matches, but then they go to the Jets again. They play the Dolphins, and I can't remember the other 2 teams off the top of my head right now, but you could argue they could finish, even if they lose both of those games to the Ravens and the Bills, which of course could happen, and then we could be talking about them very, very differently. But if they win one of those games, even if they win just one, and even if they lose both of them, they could be finishing with 12 wins here. You might not be talking about them as playoff contenders because your trust for them might disappear if they lose to both the Ravens and the Bills. But if they beat just one of those teams, and if they beat both of those teams, you're looking at a pretty elite record going into the postseason. Justin Fields, on the other hand, he went 15 for 26 passes, 116 throwing yards. He had 11 carries, one of which ended in a touchdown, 67 yards per those carry. And it begs the question again, why is he not throwing? And I think we all saw the reason why he's not throwing very much. They had a lot of schemed up plays to allow him to run. There was a lot of moments in the game where there was 4 scrambles, and all the run plays were kind of short screens, short passes. Again, schemed up plays that allowed him to pop the ball off to someone and get them to run. The opening play was a rushing play, right? They got out there. New England weren't quite prepared, and they basically rushed their way to a touchdown right at the end. The rest of the time, it was short, economical style passing or rushing, scrambling. Now, the couple of times he did create some good throwing plays, all of a sudden, the Jets looked like a much more difficult team to contend with. Now, I know Garrett Wilson wasn't there, so, you give him a pass a little bit there. But this has been the theme of the season for them a little bit. They seem to not be trusting Fields, who we all thought was kind of an all-round quarterback, could do a little bit of everything. But he seems to be running much better than he's throwing, and that shows in their game. They're kind of one-dimensional, quite easy to beat, hence their record. Whereas you look at the New England Patriots, they've got a great defense, they've got a great offense, both running and receiving, which has made them an incredibly hard team to beat. Like I said, add Henderson into the mix. Some of his moves for some of his plays today were unbelievable. The moves he was making for those touchdowns, allowing the first one to set up the drive by the rest of the pack, and then the dropping of the shoulder and finding the gap for the second touchdown. And he received a touchdown as well. And then you got Drake May, who's throwing the ball all over the place, and he's hitting his targets. Whereas Fields, when he was throwing, yeah, he made a couple of good throws, but so often they were slightly behind, slightly in front. The ball wasn't spinning properly. All these little variables that are just enough to put off a player. We talked defensively. The Patriots, again, were pretty solid. They had 2 sacks and 3 plays where they forced loss of game. No interceptions thrown by either team in this game, so it's quite a rare one, actually. But yeah, so often, that doesn't seem like unbelievable stats from the Pats, but so often what they did was broke up the play and forced a 4th down in critical times when you think your team's just about rolling. They ended the play right there. Their stoppage of teams on 3rd down is really, really elite. That just meant they forced the Jets to kick the back to them so often that they just couldn't score. They couldn't score. And this is why the New England Patriots have kept teams to under 19 per game, because they play like this. The best the Jets could hope for in this game was a forced fumble. But again, it didn't really come of anything. And, they were still quite easily outscored in this match. Side note here, I know a lot of you American fans will probably be wondering why I'm wearing this top. I've only got a couple of tops, 2 or 3. I can't find my other 2. I'm not a Chiefs fan. In the UK, lots of us haven't really affiliated with any of the teams. Maybe I should pick a side at one point, but before anyone gives me any shit about being a Chiefs fan, I'm not a Chiefs fan. I'll try and find my Jags top next week and wear that one to provide a bit of balance. And I'll also try and buy a couple of more of these. Subscribe to my channel, and then I can buy a couple of more. But don't forget how close I was to the prediction, all right? I'm getting closer. One of these days I'm gonna hit it, I'm gonna nail it. Next game we're gonna review is the Chargers against the Jags. Why am I doing that game? Well, because it's on Channel 5 in the UK and I get to watch it at a reasonable time. So I'm gonna watch that game Sunday afternoon. I'm going to try and get the kids to stay to that side of the room, just over there, and then I will watch the game, hopefully. Not sure how my missus is going to feel about that one, but we're going to try. And if not, I'll watch the rerun and bring it to you anyway. Now, I fancy the Chargers for that game, so I'm going to go for a Chargers victory. The rest of the matches are as follows. We have the Washington Commanders against the Dolphins. The Commanders have not looked good in the last couple of games, so I'm going to go for a Dolphins win, especially off the back of a Bills victory. I think they can push on from that, and the Commanders, I think, are a great team to play against to get a second victory there. The Green Bay against the Giants, we're looking at the Green Bay win for me, especially because the Giants have just got rid of their head coach. Bengals and the Steelers, yeah, I think this one could go either way, but I still fancy the Bengals. The Steelers are just a bit too variable for me. I've got Vikings to beat the Bears, the Texans to beat the Titans. I do think the Bills are going to bounce back against the Bucs. The Bucs are a good team. They'll be a hard team to beat, but I do think they're going to bounce back and win that match. Let's face it, they have to. If they want to finish top of their group, if they have any chance of finishing above the New England Patriots, then this is not a game they can afford to lose. I'm going to go for the Falcons against the Panthers. And the Seahawks are playing Los Angeles Rams. That is going to be a game. Both teams coming into this firing. The Rams, for me, a legitimate Super Bowl contender. The Seattle Seahawks off the back of 2 really big wins, but I just think the Rams again are going to be too much. So I think a narrow victory for the LA Rams. Niners to beat the Cardinals. The Ravens against the Browns, a nice rivalry there. It's going to be a good game. It always is, but I fancy the Ravens. Chiefs Broncos, another AFC match that's it's a really, really critical one for the Kansas City Chiefs. You know, they're not sitting pretty at the moment. They're in with a shout of hitting the playoffs as a wild card team, but their foot's kind of outside the door, and if they don't win this match, you really fear that they're not going to make it as a wild card. I don't think they're going to make it into the playoffs straight up, but they got a wild card chance. They have to beat the Broncos on the weekend, and I do fancy them to do it. Eagles will beat the Lions for me, even though the Lions bounced back with the win last week. Should be a good game though, and I never fancy the Raiders, so I'm going to go with the Cowboys. We'll see how close I am. I was 8 out of 11 predictions last week, so that wasn't pretty good. Let's see if I can beat my record. Let me know what you think. Am I well off the mark here with those predictions? And do you agree? How good is Drake May? Is he a legitimate contender for MVP this year? But what do I know? Tell me what you think in the comments. Please don't forget to subscribe. Enjoy the weekend's football, and I'll see you for the review of the Chargers against the Jags.